A ghost can be a lot of things. A memory, a daydream, a secret, grief, anger, guilt. But in my experience, most times, they're just what we want to see. Stephen Crane, The Haunting of Hill House. Happy Halloween, all you Holly weirdos out there. We wanted to do something a little different for Halloween. Last year, we had the wonderful opportunity to do a live show at the haunted, yet famous Pasadena Playhouse, where we were able to meet the woman in black. This year, we were invited by Bizarre Los Angeles to help facilitate a ghost investigation and seance with the wonderful Zachariah the Witch. Join us on this very special episode as Hollyweird Paranormal goes back to the historical yet haunted Harris House in Glendale, California. Learn the history of the Harris House along with its haunted history with its owner Robert Koshland and haunted by history author Craig Owens. Learn about the hauntings that reside within the walls of this home. Who is the creepy man that makes his presence known in the rooms around the house? What other entities are found and felt? So grab your sage and your EVP recorders. Gather your salt and your pendulum as we cross the creepy threshold to go through a ghost investigation and seance at the historic Harris House in Glendale, California. This is the history and haunted history of the Harris House, or as some like to call it, the Widow House. There are weirder places than Hollywood. Hey boo, hey guys, here's a little side note. The following episode contains live interviews that were conducted on October 29th of 2019 at Bizarre Los Angeles' Ghost Investigation and Seance at the historic Harris House in Glendale, California. Unfortunately, Bryce wasn't able to attend due to schedule restraints, but don't worry guys, we still managed to squeeze him into this episode. Now, let's get Hollyweird.
The Harris House is a two-story, single-family residence located in Glendale, California at the southwest corner of Wilson Avenue and Cedar Street. The home was built in 1902. It is an outstanding and remarkably intact example of residential architecture in early Glendale. A comparison between the current structure and a photo published in a 1904 brochure produced by the Glendale Improvement Association suggests that little has changed over the past 116 years. I'm actually 117, so I remember that. Stylistically, the house is a transitional hybrid that emerged as an ornate Victorian forms were rejected in favor of the more organic, horizontal qualities of the Craftsman style. It was built before Glendale's 1906 incorporation, and its original address, 304 West 3rd Street, reflects the time when the city's east-west streets were numbered and north-south streets were indicated by letters. The first owner of the house was Harriet Harris, a widow who lived in the house until 1917 and for whom the Harris House is named. There are some gaps in the subsequent ownership history, but it is known that Anna M. McCrea and her daughter Catherine lived in the house between 1921 and 1942. Mary Roseanne Reese acquired the house in 1942 and ran a boarding home for women from the home. The upstairs bathroom recalls that time with its dual toilet stalls and dual showers. It was then bought by Eileen Daviton in 1981, and she and her husband John Manis sold it to the current owner, Robert Koshland, in 2013. According to Robert, it seems like the past owners of the house may not have moved on. In other words, it's haunted AF, so good luck, girl, and the investigation. Okay, bye, and bye to all the ghosts. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
Hey boo, hey guys. Welcome to Glendale, California. Join me as we walk up the little steps to the front porch of the historic Harris house. Now, the house, I know it's a little intimidating. It looks a little scary, but I promise you it's all worth it when you step inside. As we make our way through the threshold, we are greeted by Craig Owens, who is the brainchild behind Bizarre Los Angeles and the author of Haunted by History. You see, he's the one facilitating and conducting the ghost investigation on the second level of the house. We're greeted by owner Robert Koshland and his wife Cleopatra. As we make our way to the second level, Craig Owens has everything set up for the ghost investigation. We have our K2 meters, our EVP voice recorders, and our thermometers, just in case it gets a little too chilly. We make our way downstairs to the parlor. As we go into the seance room, there we're greeted by candlelight and a beautiful table ready for the seance that will be led and conducted by Zachariah the Witch and his assistant Valentine. I could tell you that the energy is pretty thick and somewhat imbalanced. Let's chat with Zachariah the Witch before we lead into the seance and the investigation. I'm standing next to the fabulous, the one and the only Zachariah the Witch, and you are looking fierce tonight, first off. So you just set up for the seance. Mm-hmm. Tell me, just walk our listeners through your process of setting up and getting grounded, pretty much your whole thought on it and process.
Some of what you said is how I do it. I usually try to get grounded, but I don't usually tell my whole process unless someone is actually here, they get to witness it. But my assistant was actually in this parlor with me, and she got to experience when I actually opened myself to channel. I've never had anyone else in the room with me when I do that, and it immediately got cold in here. So that's usually what I do is I walk through the whole building, I get a vibe, I take a baseline, because that's the scientific way to do it, right? Get a baseline, see what's going on, and already we've all, in tandem, before anyone could even verbalize it, have agreed that the energy is heavy here this time.
Correct.
I've never been here before, and that was the first thing that came out of my mouth in every room upstairs was, it's heavy. My chest is heavy. I feel sad.
Right.
I'm even short of breath right now. So
I could tell you're a little different because I've been in a seance with you. You're a little more comfortable, but here it's not the corset girl. It's something else.
It's when I open myself, it's a totally different vibe. So I usually, when I do the process, we'll call the directions, form a circle of protection, and then we just see what spirits come forward. I'm based in logic, so I don't try to make things up. If I don't feel anything, I say I don't feel anything. I'm not getting anything. I'm not sensing anyone walking towards the circle. And that's the case that some people don't understand is sometimes spirits don't want to talk to you. Sometimes they want to stay and leer in the corner or not even show up at all. And that's kind of why I usually open myself up when I'm alone in the space, is to let them know I'm comfortable with you if you're comfortable with me.
Right.
And that's kind of what we felt was they moved in. But the second the group came this way, they moved.
Right.
They left the room. Even my assistant said it. She's like, oh, they just left. I was like, yep. So I'm ready. I'm ready to rock. I'm a little anxious because the energy is it's getting intense with more people here. So.
It's very interesting because Craig Owens is doing something very different. And I've seen this done in other museums and tours. You're not giving us, and not anyone in here is given a sense of the history or haunted history or experiences. And I'm sure other investigators with you, they don't tell you anything.
That's honestly the best way. That's for me.
I love
that is honestly the most what is that called? Affirming way of doing it.
Yeah, it's affirmative. Yeah.
I feel like you're not biased when you go into it cold. I mean, there was a building I even did in Ohio where I was blindfolded, and they had me sit in a room, and they're like, "Where are you? What is this?" And there was several things that came forward, and I that was the first time I'd done it. I was terrified. I was 19.
Oh my God! Well, anyone would be terrified being blindfolded in Ohio. I'm sorry.
But hey, dive head first, try it out.
Right.
You know, that's the best way to work that psychic muscle that
Right.
everybody has. You know,
Right.
so it's exciting. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Zachariah the Witch has definitely got some style. Dressed in black lace and black stockings, with a black turban, with just the right amount of accessories to balance his look. I met Zachariah the Witch a few months back at the Dial in Marcus. We had a wonderful discussion on tulpas and hauntings. He brought up a really good point. Sometimes it's not just a place that is haunted. Sometimes it could just be people. People tend to carry energy with them. And on this night, he definitely picked up on energy that people carried with them. But not only can he feel it, he can definitely see it. We make our way to Valentine, Zachariah's assistant, as we get her input on the house and the pre-festivities.
All right, right now I'm talking to Zachariah the Witch's assistant, Val.
Hi.
So Val, pretty much just walk us through what you're feeling. I noticed just right now, you were just kind of, I guess, getting a sense or a grounding of the area. Is that correct?
I was actually following something.
No way.
I just kept getting called into this room, and I actually can still feel it now. Like I personally feel like I want to cry. It feels like confusion, and it feels like whatever energy is here. It just feels like they don't know what's going on, and they're kind of nervous, maybe even scared.
That's what I got when I walked in. It's like nervousness and anxiousness.
A little apprehension.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually kind of like fighting off tears right now. Like I can still feel them. So I was just like walking around and like trying to pinpoint the spot exactly, and then as I got closer I got sadder and I got colder, and and I feel like somebody or a few people or something definitely wants to say something tonight. So hopefully.
Now, did you notice an energy shift when the tour group came in?
Oh, absolutely. So I call Zachariah my witch mother. So
You called her mom.
Yeah,
Mommy
so
dearest.
mother. Like that's who I'm talking about. So like when Mother was opening herself to channel, like I started feeling like coldness, but then like as the tour group started getting closer to us, the temperature evened out again, and it was so strange. Like there was no breeze. Like that's the first thing I look for. Like where are the vents? Like
Right. That's what I noticed too. Several windows are open in this in the bottom floor.
Yeah. So, but like they've been open all night, and like I've been
feeling it more intensely throughout the night. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's some.
Ooh, I could tell you're still feeling. You have this.
Yeah. I certainly do. Just feeling a something right now. So yeah, like I feel like something is definitely wanting to say something. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you so much for this quick chat with me, and good luck with the rest of the seance.
Thank you.
In the background, you can hear Craig Owens conducting a walkthrough tour of the house. There's a total of close to 20 people that have made their way to the historic Harris house for the ghost investigation and seance. You see, Craig Owens decided to do something very different with this investigation and this tour of the house. Just give him little key points of the history of the house, but do not, by any means, tell them the haunted history, the stories of each room within the house. Let them make their own assessments, not based on the stories that they are told. This is something that I definitely went through and experienced at the Haunted Museum of New Orleans, which was open about 12 years ago before they closed. You see, the curators decided to do something pretty smart. Just allow the guests to learn about the general history of the location, but by all means do not share any of the haunted history. Let them walk through the house. Let them feel. Let them get a sense of things. And then by the end, let's have a post-mortem and share what we experienced. Sometimes when we walk into a haunted space, we expect to be haunted. We expect to see the ghosts before us. But sometimes, if we allow the haunted house to speak for itself without knowing its history, you'd be surprised with the amount of things it's dying to tell you. The 20 attendees were divided into groups of 10. 10 were downstairs with Zachariah and Val, as the other 10 were led by myself and Craig Owens up the wooden staircase that is lit by candlelight. Great ambiance, right? Then the 10 were separated into groups of 5. I'm given 5 individuals to investigate one of the rooms that hasn't been investigated before. I called it Grandma's room, because a few years ago, Robert Koshland had the grandchildren of one of the owners visit him at the house. He was so gracious to allow them to tour the house, and when they finally went upstairs, they kind of stopped in front of the doorway and looked at him and told him that they were never allowed inside this room. Why? Because it was grandmother's room, and she didn't like anyone in her room. Robert Koshland originally had someone living in the room for a while until they finally moved out. But they did get weird vibes in that room. We'll go into the stories later. But during my first paranormal investigation of that house, we were not allowed to investigate that room. But I did take a picture of the front of the room, and I did capture a light anomaly. I tried to debunk it before the investigation and came up with nothing. There was just no rhyme and reason for it. It turned out that a couple in my investigation group had captured the same light anomaly, except that it wasn't in that room. It was in a different room. And this room was another guest room adjacent to Grandma's room. And whatever was in there was certainly making communication with us through our K2 meters. Here is the investigation that we conducted in the guest room. Mind you, we didn't get anything in Grandma's room, but for some reason, we definitely captured something in the second guest room.
We're in the second guest room, adjacent from the original room where we had originally caught no evidence. So we're going to set this right here. If there's anyone that wants to make communication, please do so by speaking into this mic. Possibly making the K2 light up a bit, maybe to yellow or red. So we have some returning visitors, including myself. I'm sure you're familiar with them. But they caught something in this room. We just want to know if it's you. Can you do that again on the K2? Let us know that you're here. You let it light up again. Can you do that again? Was that you that they caught on the camera last time? Right here in the corner? Oh. Hello. We've been waiting for you. Are you male or female? Light for male. Marking door opening.
And it just lit up too.
Okay.
So I'm guessing male.
Are you a male? Are you the old man up here? Are you the old man up here? I caught you on my first EVP here. You're a little sassy thing. Because when we asked you if you were old, you were like, I'm old. Well, thank you for communicating with us. Do you like us being in here? Can you light it again if you want us to stay here? Light to green if you want us to leave. We are so sorry, but we wanted to talk to you. Can you do us another favor? Can you knock on something here, on a table or on the wall? Is that too much for you to do since you're old? Are you the reason why... Oh, hello. I guess you really want us to get the F out, huh? Are you the reason why the energy feels a little heavy downstairs? You don't want anyone being in here, huh? You wanted to have a quiet night. I understand. We'll be out of your hair in a few hours, unfortunately. Yeah, please get out. Do you remember the two folks here? The gentleman in the flannel and the woman in the hat? Do you remember them visiting this room?
Hi. Good to see you again. Because I swear I see something flying around here, but always the corner and it happened again, and then this is going on.
Do you like the fact that Robert opens his home? Is that a blink for yes? Blink for yes if he does. If you like that he opens his home to people like us that want to talk. Cool. Thanks. You want us here? You want us to go? You're like, I don't know. I think you guys are growing on me.
Can we ask for you in the seance?
Yeah. Okay.
No, it's just if it lights up.
Okay.
Can you make it light to yellow? If come on, make it light to yellow if you want us to continue staying here and asking you questions because we're having fun.
Oh.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. Are you the reason why something happened downstairs a month ago? Was that a yes, light to yellow? Did you not like that object downstairs? I mean, I'm sure it clashed with everything else. You could light to yellow for yes. And light to green for no.
Inserting a side note right here, guys. So what you heard in the background was just a bit of white noise that was due to the AC in the very beginning of our session. Finally, Robert turned it off so we can have more of a clear EVP session throughout the investigation of the second guest bedroom. The second couple that you hear in the background was a couple that did investigate the house a few months back after I did. They captured the light anomaly in this room, to which is why we feel like we're getting a lot of response here. This is a very active room compared to Grandma's room. There is another couple here, and I will share my theory on why I think that this is not what we thought it was in the very beginning. And you'll listen to why I come up with this theory later on when we do a post-mortem on our stories and experiences, especially what was pretty much I guess, conjured during one of the seances, especially with this couple. Now, we had 2 of our K2 meters and my voice recorder on the bed, and we were noticing that whatever was in that room was definitely making communication with us through the K2 meters. We believe that at first it was an old man. You see, Robert Koshland and other people who've stayed in the house have witnessed and seen this old man in and around the house. Robert has mentioned the story, and you'll hear his story in postmortem that he was awoken one night to see a man sitting at the foot of his bed. Both him and his wife witnessed it. And during my first investigation of the house, I caught an EVP of an old man saying old after one of the guests of the investigation asked, "How old are you?" Now, this leads to the story of what happened downstairs in the parlor room a few months ago. You see, this was all actually documented on one of Robert's cameras that he had installed inside the house. It's like one of his security cameras. It has motion detection. Robert woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning a few months ago to what sounded like a loud thud in the parlor room. The next day, he woke up to find the taxidermy head of an antelope that he bought from a friend on the floor. And how it ended up on the floor, he still doesn't know to this day, but he caught the footage from what you see, a force pulling the head off the wall and the head falling onto the floor of his parlor. We'll soon learn why that head ended up on that floor of the parlor. And if you're curious to see the footage, Bizarre LA on Facebook has it documented on their Facebook wall. So if you go and search for it on their posts, you'll see it. It's quite an intense video. Now, let's continue with the rest of the EVP session in the second guest bedroom.
Does anybody else want to ask it a question? You're like, no, we're fine. We're good. We're fine. We're good. Mm-hmm. Do you want us to move to the next room? We have about 12 minutes left. I want to know if you can make a knock on a table or on a wall. Knock on a door. That's outside.
Steps.
Yes, marking steps outside. Anybody want to ask any more questions?
Do you just stay in this room, or can you move throughout the house freely?
Can you light up to yellow for a yes if you can move throughout the house freely? Or is that a no? Light up to green for no if you can't go throughout the house freely. That was a yes, you can? Now you're messing with us. You're messing with us, old man. Can you make it go to yellow again? Thank you so much. Kind of don't want to leave you now. Is there anything next door? Can you light to yellow if there's someone living next door? In the next room over? Okay. Are they shy? Because we were trying to talk to homegirl or homeboy next door and we weren't getting anything. Can you light to yellow if it's a woman next door? No? I'm okay. Oh, it's a woman next door. Do you have a crush on her? No.
No.
He's like, hell no.
Ew.
So this is your room, marked to yellow for yes. if this is your space, this is your domain. Thank you. Thank you. Hell yes. 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 That's what I feel. Yes. Yes.
Does the person next door bother you?
Nah, she's cool.
Not too bad.
She's alright.
So we all get along, all the people who are in this house.
Oh, maybe not.
Is there trouble between the different groups that stay in this house?
Oh, that was a good question. That was really good. Is that why you just stay here? You're minding your own business, doing your ghost things. You get in everybody's business, don't you? Mark to yellow for yes, or green for no. No. I like to double. We could go into the next room. We have 5 more minutes. I know we want to stay here, but you guys have to see the next room and of course, investigate. I want to say thank you to whomever's in this room. No? Okay. It's like, don't go. No, leave. No. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Maybe follow us to the next room if you want to hang out.
We soon managed to investigate the rest of the rooms on the second floor, but no dice. Nothing compared to what we received in the second guest bedroom. Soon we transitioned the groups. The group that was investigating the upstairs first finally went downstairs for their seance. And the first group downstairs to do the seance transitioned upstairs to do their paranormal investigation. There was definitely something with this first group, and we'll learn why. According to Zachariah the Witch, the second group that conducted the seance with him was very intense and very emotional. A lot of them were definitely carrying something or someone with them, for sure. Now, I'm sure you guys are wondering, well, where's the recording of the seances? And out of respect for the individuals that were part of both groups that were doing the seance, there were a lot of personal things that were brought up. And out of respect for them, I wanted to keep that private. But we'll definitely do a post-mortem with Zachariah right now. And you will hear in his voice that it was a pretty intense second session of the seance with the second group. And here's his post-mortem.
Talking with Zachariah, we're doing a post-mortem, so he just got done doing 2 seances, and he's a little shook. I think shook is the word.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So compared to our discussion in the beginning, how do you feel right now?
A little swirly, a little, it's starting to go away, but the second group was very emotional, and people cried. People are still crying in the other room right now.
I saw them.
There was a lot of stuff that came forward. We had a guest. I randomly got the image of a man and a motorcycle, and he was dead, and he was very peaceful and calm, but he came right behind the guy that I directed it to, and I said, "Who is this man that passed motorcycle?" And he started crying, and he said it was a week ago. So that was his friend Landon, I believe he said.
Wow, I just got a chill.
Yeah, but it was a very direct message. There was also just a lot of like forgiving and letting go of pain and things that needed to happen. It was a very different group. At first it was very stagnant. People were very closed off. I even said at one point, let's do a breathing exercise because 50 of you are here. 50% of you are just like closed off. Right. And the second we changed our mindset and got on the same wavelength by breathing, I was like, do you feel that? And everyone's like, oh, I was like, that's where we should be together.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't want to come forward and they don't want to talk to us. But we didn't get any noises this time. We didn't get any weird breeze, cool, chill kind of things this time, but the air got very hot and very thick very fast.
Oh, wow.
And that was weird. It was not like that at all in the previous group.
We believe that because when we were upstairs, nothing was going on upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm surprised because it was heavy when we first got here.
Yeah,
you know?
it was.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my goodness! But thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
You seem like you're getting a little calmer now.
A little better. I have my shoes off. I'm grounding myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so here's my theory. There's a lot going on with this first group, especially during our paranormal investigation. Compared to the second one that I had with me upstairs, nothing happened with them. It seemed like whatever energy was with the first group went downstairs with them for the second round of the seance. So here's my theory. As you heard Zachariah said, one of the individuals of the second group had an attachment, a young man that was connected to him by the name of Landon. And I remember this gentleman in the first group talking to me about his job and about how much he loved his job and the people that he encountered, and how there was this one person who recently passed, a young gentleman. So I'm wondering, was that young gentleman with him in the room when we were doing the EVP session in the second guest bedroom? Could it have been Landon that was trying to communicate with us through Matthew, maybe? Could be. Now, we'll approach our post-mortem as we sit around with Robert and finally share the ghost stories connected to the historic Harris house. And other people chime in with their findings and experiences. Mind you, none of them knew any of these stories before entering the house. Here's our post-mortem with the group.
For me, I like to go in cold without any information or prerequisite kind of stuff.
Inserting a side note, who we're listening to right now is Zachariah the Witch, and he's giving his general assessment of his reading when he first entered the house. Remember that he had no clue to anything, any of the stories or people that lived here before, anything of the haunted history attached to the location, as you'll hear him describe right now.
Every room I went into, I just felt like I was interrupting someone. I felt like I was bothering them. This room especially, like there was one point where it was, I was in here and then these doors were shut and you were introducing and doing whatever we were doing, and I thought that another guest was here. I heard movement in this room. And then when you brought us in here, there was no one here. We heard nothing moving around anywhere else in the house. It got very still the second we went in there. But I felt, again, I was bothering a man who was very grumpy. And then he came forward in the circle during the seance. Upstairs, the room with the dinosaur figure felt very heavy. It also had a strange musty smell, but maybe it's because the doors haven't been open in a while. There's a lot of heavy feelings upstairs. There was also, there's like that boudoir thing. It just felt like, I felt a little sad for a second, like I was missing someone, and there was a lot of female energy in there. But then you also had said that there was women and a girls thing, and but it was even beforehand. And then we got a bunch of names. Where's Valentine? Where's my assistant? Shit. She remembers names better than me. We got the name Robert. We got Ed. Shit. What was it? Edward? Ed. We got
No, Henry in the first one.
Henry. God.
It was like
yeah.
an L.
I'm so bad with Laura, and then
Alice.
Alice was very fidgety, moving around. Sorry, there was a lot going on. First group was so different from the second group for us. First group, we had a lot of noises, we had a lot of feelings, we had a lot of names. Second group was a lot of emotions, a lot of tears, a lot of heaviness, and a lot of it just, it was very still and uncomfortable. Like we all said at one point we were uncomfortable, and we just kept trying to change the vibe, change the energy. We did have some direct communication from people who are connected to those of you that are here. We had a young man come forward, and he walked right behind, what was your name again? I'm sorry. Matthew. He walked right behind Matthew, and he showed me a motorcycle, and he had his hands on his shoulders. And the second I said that was the connection. He knew exactly who it was, because he said he'll know exactly what this is. And do you want to share that really quick? Sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Not really.
Okay, so anyways, it was someone who had passed, and it's very recent, and that was the connection, was how they passed. So, sorry.
It's all right.
Other than that, I'm having a hard time recalling. There was a lot that happened. The dog, we saw a dog earlier before all of you got here. Got the name Alice. You had a connection to your beagle.
Yeah.
There was also, I'm trying to remember what I saw. Lord. That room in the front, saw someone poised like this in the doorway. Saw them in the reflection of the mirror several times. It was a woman. Grumpy man in here. Grumpy man did not want to come out here. Was annoyed that we were talking. Upstairs, heavy, just stagnant energy. And that's all I really got right now. I'm a little tired. So, but thank you everyone for being in the group. I appreciate it. So, I hope that's enough information.
You were fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to my assistant too.
No, stop it. Just Zachariah.
Does anyone want to share anything that they experienced or saw or anything?
I felt Grumpy Man. When we were sitting here during the cocktail party, man, I was here, I just felt this angry pressure, like didn't want us here, or didn't want.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard that before, your Grumpy Man story, and it's not here now, but in this room I felt this, and I just felt exactly what you're talking about, like to get out.
Yeah.
So that's. There's so many different things that have happened in this house, and mind you, I've never been scared once of any of these things. It's never been a scary thing. It's just been a weird thing. Other people have been scared. I think it maybe depends on your perspective. I'm very ambivalent about it. I'm just like, whatever. Sometimes it's bothersome more than anything. But the Grumpy Man's funny because that goes back to the very first night I stayed in this house. I was previously married, and my ex-wife and I moved into this house. And in getting this house, it was a very high-stress situation, mostly for her. And the first night we slept in the house, she woke me up in the middle of the night, and she said, "There's a man in this room." And she's like, and he's sitting in the chair across from the bed. There was a chair, and the chair had come with the house.
Oh, wait, before you say that, do you remember that when we were upstairs? I said I felt like someone was here and they were watching across the bed a lot. So that's interesting.
Okay, well,
so
there's some things about this. So that in particular, so she's like, you need to move the chair out of the room. And so a lot of furniture had come with the house. I don't have very much of this furniture left. So I took that chair and I brought it down and put it in the entryway. And it's not there right now. It's actually moved into the room on the end that has the Chinese bed in it. So it's in there now. So maybe 2 months after that, we had a psychic come through and didn't tell her anything. And she walked through the whole house and then came back with all this stuff. And one of the first things she said was, "What do you think about the guy that sits at the end of your bed?" She's like, and he's grumpy, and he doesn't have a place to sit, so now he's sitting on your bed, and and she said he was afraid of fire. He had some kind of thing with fire, and so there's been a kind of a repeated thing about this kind of grumpy man. And it has to do with this chair, though. This old chair that came with the house. It's looks like it came with the house, like originally came with the house, and it's in the other room. So that was like literally the very first thing that ever happened in coming to the house. In the first few weeks of living in the house, it was like a nonstop marathon of unusual activity. The front door would open at 4 a.m, just in the middle of the night, set off the burglar alarm. The stereo in this room would turn on. The TV would turn on, always at a very inconvenient time, like 4 a.m. Just nonstop. Things would turn on, things would turn off. But a lot of times stuff would turn on in the middle of the night. And there was a time where the stereo turned on, the front door, which had been deadbolted, wide open, the burglar alarms going off. So it was like, it really was kind of a hassle for a while. And then that settled down. But sometime after that, about a year after that, a number of other things kind of went down. But probably one of the most... There's been several very dramatic things that happened, so I'm not going to bore you with every little weird thing that's happened, but I'll give you the things that are like the kind of stuff you see in a horror movie about ghosts. Because the reactions that one has when these things happen are very similar to what people do in movies. And you're like, why are you doing that? Well, it's like, because it's the movie, right? So like when you hear this thing downstairs, you get out of bed and go down to investigate, right? It's just like one of those things. And it's like, and you're thinking like, this is what happens in horror movies. But it's like, I got to go see what's going on. Like, what am I going to do? Call the police and tell them to come, It's like, you go look, or do I just stay in the bedroom and like worry about it, So, so the most dramatic things that have happened, the stereo and the front door opening is pretty darn dramatic, and it was like really a hassle. Like the door would open over and over and over again, and finally it stopped, and like it never happened again. But I saw two figures, and this was a very dramatic and very kind of weird experience for me. Three other people have seen these figures. Two other people saw them with their eyes, and then a bunch of people saw them when they took a photo, which is something that I can show you. So it was Thanksgiving, the night of Thanksgiving in 2014, I want to say. And a bunch of people had been here at the house. I do a Thanksgiving thing with family and friends. And I had one friend who had previously kind of lived here as a roommate, and then she was very scared of kind of paranormal stuff. So she was always very skittish. And that night, around 10 o'clock, we were hanging out in this room playing Cards Against Humanity. And she said, something weird going on, I'm leaving. And then she just got up and left. And specifically, she said something spooky was going on. She left. So that night, I went to bed, and my ex-wife was there, and she was staying in a different room, the guest room that some of you were there.
The one with the dinosaur.
Yeah. My sister actually was downstairs in this opium bedroom, and there was a few other people scattered around the house. I was by myself, though. And I couldn't sleep. I was kind of up, and I was thinking around on the internet, and I'm playing, sending moves to people and Words with Friends. But at a certain point, which is around 4 o'clock, you completely run out of things to do. You've read every news story. There's no news stories coming out. You've looked at everybody's pages. You've played all your games. You're really just done. There's no more internet's over at 4 a.m. pretty much. So unless you're going to go down some rabbit hole researching stuff, but I was kind of not into it. So I was I should really try and go to sleep. So I turned off the lights. And the minute I turned off the lights, I noticed this kind of movement in the room. It was above the doorway, and it looked like, and I'd seen it once before on the wall, it looked like cigarette smoke. It looked like cigarette smoke that was slowly moving over the surface of the wall. And then I saw it kind of around the doorway, and it was a little on the ceiling, and it just kind of it didn't make up the whole room, but the room, it was like being in a cave where they have bioluminescent lichens or something. The room was illuminated by this cigarette smoke. Not completely, just kind of around the door and part of the room. So I was looking around and thinking, that's interesting. And before I saw this, I was in a very agitated state. I was really not happy at this time in my life. I was very sad, just kind of depressed. And as I'm watching this, I started my mood really started to improve. I was just kind of this is kind of cool. Wow, check this out. And I'm looking at it. And then I see in the corner of the room, if you've been in the master bedroom, there's a big mirror on the wall. The bed was on the opposite side of the wall it is now, and I was sort of facing where that mirror was. The mirror wasn't there, it was just the wall. And I saw what appeared to be two figures, with kind of a head and shoulder, but not arms or anything, just kind of heads and shoulder and a body, but indistinct, made of this smoke, this cigarette smoke, that was moving as a bluish gray. And I was wow, ghosts or something, And I'm not necessarily even a person that super believes in ghosts, but I believe that there are a lot of things that we don't understand. And I believe a lot of interdimensional things and stuff. So anyway, I see these figures, so I'm all hello. So I literally said, hello, can you see me? Hello. And they came right up to me, like, just like, again, like a movie, like they floated, like, just like, and they were like at the bed, like, and I'm like kind of sitting up in bed now, and they're right there, and I'm like, you can see me, and I'm ecstatic. Like, I was so happy. Like, I felt this, like, amazing, like, weird joy. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. But, like, they didn't say anything, and they kind of were just there and maybe leaned in a little. And then later I'm thinking, like, they were probably like, do you see something here? Like, wait, is there something there? And I was like, oh, my God, they can see me. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, what, And I'm like, I don't know what to say or ask, but they're not saying anything. And then, like, they kind of moved back a little bit. And then, like, it started to kind of dissipate, and then it was black. And when the room went black, I felt this weird, this is the only time I've felt scared about it. I was scared. I was, like, super scared. And then I was like, what just happened? Like, did I just die? Because, like, I saw a light, I saw these figures, I felt really happy. I'm like, this is literally what people say when they die, and then they come back. And I was like, oh, my God. So I was like, what the hell? So I turned on the light, and I'm like, I'm okay, all right. I don't, like, that was weird. So then I'm like, can I do it again? So I turned off the light, nothing. Turned it on, turned it off. And so I didn't know what to do. So I decided the only thing I could do at the time is I posted about it on Facebook. Again, it's like 4:30 in the morning now. So I write this kind of like general synopsis of what I just experienced, but it's like I didn't want to spend too much time writing it. And I posted it. And literally I post it and I get a text, like immediately. And it's my ex-wife, and she's awake. And she's like, oh my God, I just woke myself up from a night terror because I was dreaming that the ghosts were in the room with you, and I could see them. I was afraid for you, and I was trying to wake myself up to get in the room with you. And I was like, oh. I was like, cool. So anyway, she came in. We had a huge talk about it. But she literally dreamed seeing that happen while I was experiencing it. And then, weirdly, another thing happened, like, maybe a month later that was similar. And there's a bunch of, and again, I'm not going to just, like, go through everything that's ever happened, but there's a lot of things that have happened that someone else dreams about at the same time that it's happened. So, have you guys heard the doorbell here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying. If you haven't heard it, it's terrifying. It sounds like a school bell from, like, the 1950s, like recess is over. 4 a.m, the doorbell. I woke up, I was like, no one rings your doorbell at 4 a.m. for anything good. Like, it's like, my experience, like, someone's going to try and break in and kill you. One time at my other place, someone was actually dead on my doorstep. That's a whole other story. So I was like, what the hell? So I, like, opened the window of the bedroom. I yelled out, I'm like, someone down there, what do you want? No response. So I got a gun, and then, like, I came down, and I'm, like, going to, like, check it out. So I, like, basically kind of did a scan. My ex-wife was still living here at the time. She was downstairs in the room that has the Chinese bed, so she was in that room. I didn't go in there. I just kind of, like, walked around the house, checked all the windows, checked all the doors, looked out in the yard, didn't see anything, went back to bed, fell asleep. Next morning I woke up, totally forgotten about it. Down in the kitchen, and I was just drinking coffee, and she comes in, and she's like, oh, I was just chatting with your sister. And I was like, really? What's going on with her? She's like, oh, apparently she had this, like, really intense dream with you in it last night. And she dreamed that the ghosts wanted you to go downstairs to do something. And I was like, really? That's weird. And I was like, well, I got up this last night because someone rang the doorbell. And I did go downstairs. And she's like, nobody rang the doorbell. I'm like, oh, shit. I was like, well, they got me downstairs, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I didn't do anything. I just, like, walked around. So, so, like, some weird stuff like that. And so I'm going to tell you about 2 more incidents. And, again, there's, like, kind of an infinite supply of these, like, little things, but 2 more dramatic incidents. New Year's Day, a couple of years ago, it was the year that Westworld came out, so whatever year that was, because specifically we were watching Westworld. I had seen Westworld. But 2 of my friends had not. So on New Year's Day, they came over, and we were upstairs on the couch in pajamas watching Westworld. And it was the afternoon. It was like probably 1 p.m, but we had all the curtains closed and the blinds drawn just because it was easier to see. And I was kind of thinking, because like I was kind of spacing out. I had already seen it, so I was kind of like, they were watching it, and I was kind of like thinking to myself, I thought, I'm really sad right now. By the way, I'm not really sad anymore, but like I went through some sad period. I was like, I'm not sad, because it coincides with that. And as I thought that, there was this insane crashing in the room. We all screamed, and we were like, what the hell? So we paused it, and then we like turned on the light, and we're like, what possibly happened in here? And right here, if you see this little circular thing, that wooden plug, that plug covers what was a vent that a wood-burning stove would have been attached to. And if you look around the house, they're all over the place. They are all attached to like an old system, a chimney system, but it's completely sealed. It's not part of any of the existing anything. In fact, in this one, which is connected to the one upstairs in the TV room, there's just a bunch of wires that are running for like AC units and stuff like that. So it's not functional with any kind of air system. Well, anyway, that plug, just like that, plugged into the wall, had shot across the room and hit the other wall upstairs. Literally the distance from this to that wall, it had shot across and hit the wall with enough force it probably would have severely hurt somebody if they were sitting there. We were all sitting here, so it had flown right across our faces and hit the wall. So then we discovered that. We were like, wow, okay, I'm glad we weren't sitting right there. It was crazy. It was really crazy. It came out with some amazing force. And you'd think if there was some kind of pressure event in there, they all would have come off or something, but none of them did. And the chimney's not attached to anything. Literally, these are just pipes. There's no air. There's no anything. So that was a crazy, kind of terrifying event. And then more recently, in here, there's a taxidermied pronghorn antelope. Well, the other day, I don't know, it was maybe 4 months ago or something, 3 months ago. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't long ago, 2 months ago. Around 6 a.m, I heard a crashing sound, or a weird sound, like someone like knocking on the door, but like not knocking, but like pounding, kind of like dum 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 dum.
Your experience, what you said. He said, I feel like the taxidermy things don't belong. Someone doesn't like them. So,
and that's one of the few pieces of actual taxidermy I have. So you'll notice a lot of the taxidermy I have is not taxidermy, it's just wood.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
I don't really collect a lot of taxidermy, and a friend of mine was just selling that, and it was a very good price, and I like a good deal, so I was like, oh, I'll buy it. So anyway, I had it on the wall. Well, anyway, I walked around that after I heard it, I got up as usual, came downstairs, walked around, didn't see anything, went up and went back to bed. So then later that morning, we were down in the kitchen, and then I don't know, I decided to go get something out of the parlor. I went down the hall, opened the door, and that pronghorn was literally in the middle of the room. It was like I was just like, whoa. So I don't know if you've noticed them, because I make them not noticeable, but there's security cameras everywhere. Like there's one in the cuckoo clock in the parlor. So I have cameras in places. And so I was like, well, let me check the footage. And sure enough, in the footage, there it is on the floor, back up. It literally flies off the wall onto the floor. I mean, it
looks like it's been thrown.
It looks like
it looks like it was thrown.
Yeah, so, and I can show you that
and
too.
yeah, he's got it on video.
Yeah, so like it, so it's totally got thrown into the middle of the room.
Projectile.
Yeah, like it was a projectile launch of that head. So
projectile.
So anyway, so those are some examples of some things that have happened here. 2 other people saw the kind of smoky beings. Both of them saw a singular smoky being in the parlor. I used to have a daybed in the parlor, and sometimes guests would come and sleep there. In both cases, both people reported a man sitting at the edge of the bed, or a man that they sensed it was a man, but it was a smoky figure. One literally pounded on my door in the night, crying, and she told me that she'd seen it, and she ran out into the night, like in bare feet, and left the house. The other was like, it was the most amazing experience ever. I want to see that guy again. So there's perspective, I think. So like that was Cass who was like all about it. She was like, that was so awesome. She's like, so there were two people that experienced a man in this room, and saw the same exact thing that I saw. And then also, we had a film crew here. It was a student film. They were all Saudi Arabian, and they were filming. They actually used the house as a set that was to take place in Saudi Arabia, actually, which is interesting. And somehow they made it work. They didn't shoot in any of the colorful rooms, and it was kind of amazing. But anyway, it was about a girl who gets put into this kind of halfway house that they do in Saudi Arabia for like having a magazine or something, like having like a cosmopolitan magazine, and eventually like kills herself, and like because this is kind of the thing, like terrible things that ends up happening. Well, they were getting ready to shoot the scene where she hangs herself up in the TV room, which is where there's like a whole host of things. That's like a very busy room. And they were taking photos of her just kind of, she's standing on a box and there's a pole and she's just like holding it. It's not what they were filming. They were just taking kind of behind the scenes shots. And so I had gone to lunch. I came back and then one of them comes up to me and they say, "Do you have a ghost in the house?" And I said, "Whoa, why? Maybe." And they're like, "We took a photo of it." And I was like, "Wow. Really?" And I was like, well, let me see. So it's a sequence of photos of this girl holding onto a pole, but in one of the photos, it looks like a black smoke has come out of the ceiling and is enveloping her. It's really weird. Like, it looks like smoke. And when you look at it close up, you can kind of see it's smoky, and it's just around her. And I learned later that in Islamic mythology, and some of you probably know this, but I didn't really know it. I'd never made the connection, but in Islamic mythology, there's a race of beings that exist among us, the jinn, which is where the word genie comes from, and that's why genie looks like it's smoke and comes out of the lamp. The jinn look like, we see them as smoky beings. They exist around us at all times, but we can't always see them and they can't always see us, but sometimes there's like crossover. And we can have encounters with them. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're just ambivalent, they're just doing their thing. But the jinn are these smoky beings that exist among, like, in our world, but in another plane, another dimension almost. And like, yeah, so then they were like, jinn. They're like, it's the jinn. So I was just like, oh, interesting. Yeah, I never really knew. And that's what a genie is, you know, there's smoke. And so that there's been reports in the room with the dinosaur. Previously, that's served as a bedroom. I had a friend who stayed there. She was living there, and she said one night she had gone to the bathroom in the night, and as she was going back, she'd woken up because she thought like someone was jumping on her bed, and she got up and then ended up going to the bathroom. And as she was going back, she felt somebody brush by her, and she thought she heard what sounded like a little girl say sorry. And the psychic had reported that a little girl goes back and forth between that room and the bathroom, and she's very sick, like with something. That was something that she had said. And the very first thing that anyone had experienced before later, like anyone who wasn't me living in the house had experienced, someone had saw a dog in that room. And also on the stairwell, too. We've had a lot of reports of dogs in the house. And the psychic said, again, didn't tell her anything. She said that she believed there were two dogs that lived in the house, and they were not from the same time period. They were different, unrelated dogs. And we've had dogs behave very weirdly in the house, too. But mostly happy. Any dog that is released into this house, like, and has free range, will run upstairs and go in the TV room. They just run up there. They shoot right up there and then like run around and have a great time. Like, they love it up there. Get on the couch and but somehow they know that's the place to go. But then once I had a dog here who was afraid to be in the master bedroom, and this is a big dog, a German Shepherd. And was in the TV room, because dogs love the TV room. So then I was like, come on, let's go downstairs. And it was just me and the dog in the house at the time. And I walked out. This is the one other time I felt somewhat afraid. And the dog, like, walked a few steps out of the TV room, looked at the room where the dinosaur is, and just started growling and backing up. And it was just like, and just backed up into the TV room and would not come down. So I was like, well, that's scary. I'm going downstairs. Good luck up here. So I went downstairs, and a few minutes later, the dog came, like, scrambling down at high speed. So, yeah. So, anyway, those are some stories. There's a lot of stories.
Yeah, there's the TV that would turn on and off one morning for you.
Oh yeah.
That was.
That's a. Thank you. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that story, and that'll be it, and then we can mill around or whatever. So, maybe 2 years ago, I'd say I woke up 4 a.m, TV in that room had turned on. So I was like, I get out of bed because I have this kind of when these things. It's happened so many times that I'm kind of like, ugh. So I get out, turn off the TV. I'm like walking back to bed. I just get to the bed, like the edge of the bed, TV turns back on. So I walk back in, turn the TV off, stand there, look at it for a minute. I'm like, okay. Go back in the room, get in bed. Literally, my head is like on the pillow, TV turns on. And then I'm like, God damn it. So like I get up, stomp in there, and I'm like, turn off the TV. I'm like, stop turning off the TV. I'm like yelling at the TV, stop turning off the TV. I'm trying to sleep. Like, why are you turning it on? Do you want me to come in here? We watching TV? I'm not going to watch TV. I'm like, so I'm just standing there. You turn it on. I'll wait for you if you want to turn it on again. And waited for a little while, and I was like, okay, fine. Went back to bed, didn't turn it on again. So, but I literally was yelling at the TV, or whatever, turning the TV on. But then it didn't turn on again. So, well, I don't know.
I have a few as well updates. We did a paranormal investigation back in March. It was the very first one. Ellie, you said you saw a blue right here, which happens to be a very energized, there's all kinds of electricity power circuit right there. She was sitting right there on that sofa, and she saw it, and I went over there, and it really did have a lot of electromagnetic energy. It was really charged in that area. So that was worth noting. One of the people that were there on the first night claimed that she didn't feel any kind of dog energy. She felt a cat energy. And I just kind of noted it. The next night for part 2 of the paranormal investigation, there was a couple in the master bedroom with a recorder, and they recorded a cat meow, which was very weird.
Very distinct, too.
Very distinct cat meow. And so I ended up calling that person that the night before that said that they had felt cat energy and said, I think you're right. We picked up a cat meow. Tammy picked up an EVP in the bedroom, or was it?
It was in Robert's bedroom.
Yeah.
It was really funny because there was a girl in the group that asked about the old man, and she said, how old are you? And in the background, you can hear this man's voice that doesn't match anyone in the room. He goes, old. He's like, old, obviously I'm old. So it was funny. It was scary, but it was funny.
These things kind of start, you start getting a better picture of what was going on. I'll tell you, when Psychic Kids came here, a couple of months ago, I was brought in as kind of the historical person, and I just kind of led a tour. Not with the Psychic Kid itself, but with the production crew. And when we were upstairs, I'd never seen, you would think a production crew for a paranormal show would not get so spooked. But that upstairs bathroom door opened by itself.
Oh, wow.
And they jumped. And they were like going, they go, does that happen? And I said, well, I've never seen it open. But I'm like,
it happens.
it's, I'm like, it's not a big deal, but I thought it was kind of funny. But the child that they brought in, she picked up some interesting stuff. I'd say she was about 50% correct with her findings. Of course, they edited it to where she was like 100% correct, But she was about 50% correct on her findings. But one of the things that she picked up on that I thought was interesting is she felt that this was once a hotel. And it wasn't a hotel, but it was a boarding house for women. and they had women staying in almost all of the rooms in the house, including the one we're in now.
No, not this room.
Not this room?
That
okay,
room.
no, this was the social room.
This room and the dining room were common area.
But even the basement, people were living in the basement, the sons of one of the owners. So there were, what, 17?
16 women and a family of 4.
Yeah.
So 20 people.
So I thought it was pretty interesting that she picked up on a hotel because it would have that kind of energy. But she picked up on a couple of names that were relevant. One was the name John, and I know everyone knows a John, I believe. But there was one of the sons or grandsons of one of the owners did die mysteriously. And I haven't been able to figure out how he died, but he died young. And I want to say he died in 1935, and he was 30 years old or so. And he's buried in Forest Lawn, Glendale. And cannot figure out how he died, but it's strange because according to the 1930 U.S. Census, he was unemployed. And there just isn't a lot of information about him. Everyone else in the family was working, but not this one. But anyway, she picked up on a young guy named John. And I thought, that's interesting. And then a little backstory. There haven't been that many owners. But one of the common themes with this house is widows. It was Harriet Harris was the first owner. That's the Harriet house is named after her. She was a widow. She lived with a housekeeper, and that was it. In this big old house. That's what we know, or what we think we know. She lived here until the late 19-teens. Then she sold it to another widow who came in and with her daughter and tons of grandkids. And Annie McRae was that person. And she might have died in this house because she was already somewhat aged when she came in. And she died, I want to say either 20s or 30s. I'd have to look at my notes exactly. But her daughter continued on living here. But there were tons. Then the next person that moved in, they sold this house in the early 40s. And they sold it actually to a married couple, but then the husband died not long after moving in here, leaving yet another widow. And so she's the one that turned this into a boarding house in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And she was big into growing plants and horticulture and
square dancing.
Square dancing, yeah. I found pictures of her and sent you quite a few.
Mm-hmm. I met her grandkids too.
Yeah, and but she didn't die in the house, and she ended up selling it to a man who was older. There's your older connection, and he died not long after he bought the house, and it fell into the possession of his younger wife, who sold the house to Robert eventually. Mm-hmm. So this little psychic girl picked up on the older man's first name. I mean, I had just found it out that day, just because I was nervous that they'd throw me a haymaker. So it took me forever to get this guy's first name. She named him and said that he was older. So if you ever see that episode and you see my reaction, it's genuine because I had just found that information out and she honed in on it. So he may be your older entity here. It does match with the paranormal reports. Okay?
What was his name? What's his name?
I don't want to say Steve. I have to look. I'll look it up. It'll be, if you watch the episode, it'll be there.
Steve and Stefan. And they said that's what they said upstairs. They said Stefan or Steve, and they said it was somebody I know. I'm like, I don't know anybody by Stefan or Steve.
Okay. I think that was the name, but I'll have to double check. Like I said, it took me forever to figure that out because it's not readily accessible because it's too recent.
Yeah.
So I had to go back through tons of records and before I found it, because the woman eventually, I believe, remarried or something. But she always kind of joked to Robert, it's kind of a mean joke, but I said, now that he's married, he better be worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I had the house historically listed, I actually had presented to the city that I wanted to call it the widow's house because of all the widows, and they were like, no. We're like, we're going to call it the Harris house after Harriet Harris. I was like, all right.
But
fine.
that's the common thing with this house, is it has widow energy. That's why I find it interesting that people are seeing male ghosts here. Because you would think, being a boarding house for women, you would think all the people that have come through, so there must have been some men that were socializing here too, that were boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean, I know the third owner's 2 sons that lived in the basement, they actually married a couple of the boarders, the tenants here. So, there probably were some sneaking around the alley with Sally going on here,
I remember Zachariah, right?
Yeah.
Did say there's all these women in this man.
Did you?
During our seance, and had
There was a lot of activity, and it was just there was like references of balloons and imagery of a party, and then it's when you do a seance, it's hard to know, is it connected to the people directly in the seance or is it the building itself?
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, it's like I told everybody in each group, I was like, I'm not fishing for information, I'm just saying what's coming in my head.
Yeah.
If it sits with you, cool. If it doesn't, then it might just be this space, because it's a vibration.
Yeah, well,
so.
one of the claims that probably didn't make the episode. I never saw the episode of Psychic Kids, but I was brought in to kind of fact check the psychic child's claims. But there was an adult that had been on Psychic Kids 10 years before. He was very fascinated, so he followed me out into the driveway, and he was like, here's what I really wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. But was this place a speakeasy at one time? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, there's nothing in the records. But he also claimed that he thought he saw someone from the 19th century around this area. And he was wearing like a frock coat and looked much older, from an older period. And so I said, well, I don't really know. I mean, right outside the street was where the railroad, the streetcars would go through. And this was, going to be, before Leslie Brand came over and remapped Glendale, this area was going to be close to downtown. Glendale Avenue was supposed to be the main thoroughfare, not Brand Street, And so they were laying down and trying to map it, the original settlers of Glendale. This was going to be the area. And it didn't turn out that way. So,
one thing that's a little interesting about, and I know we're going to want to wrap up soon since it's getting a little late, but the Glendale used to have a sanitarium here, if anyone's ever seen photos of it. Disneyland's Haunted Mansion in Paris is actually based on the sanitarium that was in Glendale. And that is, it was just 2 blocks from here where City Hall is now. It actually had been built as a hotel. It was only very briefly a hotel, then it became a sanitarium, and then they tore very briefly, and then they tore it down. But it's interesting, if you see it in black and white photos, it's very spooky, but if you find color, there's color postcards and stuff, it's all garish colors, like yellow and all kinds of stuff. But it's got these kind of rounded towers and stuff, and very big and interesting looking. So yeah, look up the Glendale sanitarium. And everything in Disneyland gets designed in Glendale here. So yeah, so the Imagineers were inspired for the Haunted Mansion there. They used some of the architectural stylings of the Glendale sanitarium. So.
Robert, since you talked to family members that had owned this or visited or lived, did any of them say that they had experienced anything when they were here?
We never really talked about it. So the only people I really met, I met did I ever meet them? I think I briefly met the people who owned the house I bought it from, because when we did the walkthrough, I came to see the listing. They were just still in the house, which they always say don't be in the house when people come to leave your house. But anyway, they were floating around kind of. So I sort of met them, but we didn't talk. And then I met the grandchildren of the woman who owned this in the 40s. I had noticed a bunch of people out front taking photos of the house, like 4 people in their 70s. And I was like, oh, hey, can I help you or whatever? And they're like, oh, this was our grandmother's house. I was like, oh, well, come on in. And they had never been in most of the house. They'd come to the stairs because all these people lived in the house. So they weren't allowed into all their rooms. They never were allowed into even their grandmother's room. So, like, as they're walking around the house, they were like, I never was in this room. I remember this. And, like, Uncle whatever lived in the basement, and they were down there. And they were like, I remember the stairs being so much bigger. I was like, well, if you were, like, 9 years old then, like, get low. And they're like, oh, yeah. So, like, they really had a time, and they'd never been in most of the house, which was interesting, just in kind of, like, this area and, like, the hallway and so forth. So it's kind of interesting.
The third owner was Mary Roseanne Reese, in case anyone picked up any vibes.
That was their grandparents, and they were in town for a funeral, apparently, but they gave me a lot of information about her and so forth. So.
And if the grumpy man is, in fact, this person that might have died in the late 70s, very early 30s, his wife would have been Eileen.
Yeah.
So
Robert?
Yes?
Quickly, what's the story with the TV room?
I don't know.
Nobody really knows what that was.
I felt
used
woozy in
for.
that room.
Yeah, I don't know. That room, I don't know. I don't know what you'd even use it for. I mean, when you build houses like this in Victorian times, a lot of times rooms would be used as closets. They didn't really build closets so much. So that room very well could have been full of trunks and racks and stuff for clothes originally. And then over time, I don't know. The people I bought it from used it as an office. And who knows? Don't know. But in the 40s, I know that like 2 or 3 women lived in that room and in the room, the master bedroom, and so forth. So, and back in Victorian times, this is Edwardian times technically because it's 1902. The master bedroom would always be downstairs. So the room that has the Chinese bed, that was the master bedroom, because it would be too hot upstairs, and you'd want the master bedroom be in this kind of more grand room. And then also, you never let any visitors come beyond the parlor, pretty much. So no one ever saw the rest of your house. So the master bedroom would always be downstairs, and then the next room would be maybe a sitting room. There was one room in the house you guys did not get to see, which we don't really show on tours. It's Cleopatra's studio. She's a costume designer. Also, our dogs are in there, but like it's just not. It's not possible to tour in there. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. So, but that would have been their sitting room for the master bedroom, and they would have been able to walk to the bathroom and stuff. Upstairs would be for like in-laws, grandparents, kids, like they could suffer in the heat or whatever. So.
I could tell you that tonight there were a lot of different people that were coming up and saying that they were feeling fuzzy in some of the upstairs rooms. How many felt fuzzy besides George, inside the TV room? Anyone feel kind of fuzzy there? You felt fuzzy? Someone said that they were feeling fuzzy in the dinosaur room as well.
That was me. I was feeling fuzzy. We also had me and a couple over here. We had a great session in there with the K2 meters. We were asking questions and we were getting responses too. But what is in that other room that you were even sitting in with us?
The guest room?
Yeah, it's like the guest room, but we brought a K2, we set it on the bed, and we asked it, please light up for yellow for yes and green for no. And it was responding to us, so we were
that was a bedroom, and I've never experienced anything in that room myself, but that was the room where my ex was dreaming of the ghosts. She had the dream in that room.
We asked if it was a male presence, and it said yes. And then, what was the question that you asked in the? You asked a really good question about the energies in here, if it like collided with the energies or.
Yeah, just to say
they didn't get along.
Yeah, if they got along with everything.
Yeah, so he asked a really good question: do you or do all the other energies in the separate rooms get along? And it blinked to green for no, that their energies collide. Like, we asked him, "Do you stay in this room?" And he said, "Yes."
Interesting.
Yeah.
And one other thing, and then we should probably get going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that I'm kicking you out or anything, but it's okay. Nothing scary's ever happened in the basement. So even
Yeah,
though
that's
like
one of
people
the
always
funny
think that
things.
like the basement is the place, it's like you've never had anything scary.
That's the funny thing for a haunted place. That is like the most non-haunted basement ever.
I'm also, if you want to see, I'm going to show you the video of that thing flying up.
Maybe it's true. A ghost can be a lot of things. It could be a memory, a daydream, a secret. It could even be grief and anger. It could even be a pet or someone that you know who's been connected to you. So that is the haunting at Harris House. If you're ever in and around the Glendale area, definitely stop by to go check it out. They're dying to meet you there. We wanted to say a big thank you to Craig Owens of Bizarre Los Angeles and author of Haunted by History Volume 1. Definitely go get his book, guys. It's a really great read to learn more about the haunted history of California. A big special thank you to Robert Koshland and Cleopatra for opening up their house to us thrill seekers. Another big thank you to Zachariah the Witch and Valentine, his assistant, for conducting such an amazing and quite emotional seance. You should definitely go follow them, guys. You can find Zachariah the Witch on Instagram at Zachariah the Witch, and you can also follow the Historic Harris House at historic_Harris_house on Instagram, and Bizarre Los Angeles on Instagram and Facebook. But most of all, a huge thank you to our patrons and listeners. Without you, this episode wouldn't have been made possible without you and your support, so thank you. And finally, Bryce and I wanted to wish all you Holly Weirdos a happy and safe Halloween. Just remember, guys, to stay weird, but most of all, stay Hollyweird.